want to begin with something that seems simple, but is often missed. Most people chase money without ever asking why. They chase jobs, side hustles, stocks, crypto, careers, connections, all in pursuit of a number. But wealth, real wealth, doesn't start with how you make money, it starts with why you want it in the first place. When I was younger, I thought the most important thing was to figure out how. How do the rich invest? How do they avoid taxes? How do they structure their time? I was obsessed with tactics. I read every article, watched every video, bought every course, and I made progress, yes, but something was off. I was learning, but not moving. Growing in knowledge, but stuck in place. And it wasn't until I sat with a mentor, not a millionaire, but someone deeply grounded and genuinely happy, that I realized what was missing. He asked me, "Why do you want to be wealthy?" It should have been an easy answer. I had rehearsed versions of it in my head 100 times. To take care of my family, to be free, to do what I want, when I want. But when I said those things out loud, they sounded shallow. Not wrong, but incomplete. I realized I had never actually sat with the question. I never went deep. I didn't know my why. I was playing a game I didn't even fully understand. And that's the dangerous thing. When you don't know why you're chasing something, you become vulnerable. Vulnerable to distraction. Vulnerable to comparison. Vulnerable to other people's definitions of success. You'll start measuring your life by numbers on a screen, promotions on a wall, cars in your garage, and yet still feel like something's missing. Because without a why, the how doesn't matter. You can have all the money in the world and still be bankrupt inside. Wealth isn't just money. Wealth is freedom. Wealth is purpose. Wealth is knowing that what you have supports the life you actually want to live. If you don't define that life first, wealth becomes a moving target, one you can never catch. The moment you hit a goal, the bar moves. A better car, a bigger house, a more exclusive zip code. But when your why is clear, the goal becomes stable. You no longer chase money, you build it with intention, with clarity, with peace. So here's what I learned, and this is the first rule that changed my relationship with wealth. Start with why. Not in theory, not as a nice idea, I mean practically. Sit down, unplug, and ask yourself, if I had all the money I thought I needed, what would I be doing differently? Most people say they'd travel, or quit their job, or give more. But that's only the surface. Go deeper. What kind of life would you build? Who would be in it? What would your days look like? What would make you proud? When your vision is clear, money becomes a tool, not the goal. That shift changes everything. You stop making financial decisions based on fear and start making them based on purpose. You stop spending to impress and start spending to express. You stop thinking in terms of cost and start thinking in terms of value, because your why gives your money direction. I met a man once who had built a massive business, sold it for tens of millions. By every external measure, he had made it. But one day, he told me, I climbed a mountain only to realize I hated the view. He had followed the money, but never questioned the mission. He lost years chasing what he thought he was supposed to want, only to realize none of it filled him. Contrast that with another person I know, a school teacher, not wealthy by traditional standards, but wealthy in life. She wakes up every day with joy, has no debt, saves consistently, and travels every summer. Her life is built around her values, not anyone else's. She's clear on her why, and her finances are aligned with it. She's not chasing money, but she's not struggling with it either. Her money serves her. That's real wealth. This isn't just about mindset, it's strategy. People who lead with why make better long-term decisions. They invest with patience. They spend with intention. They take calculated risks. They're not reacting to trends. They're following vision. And in a world obsessed with the next big thing, that kind of grounded clarity is rare and powerful. Starting with why also protects you from burnout, from envy, from making decisions that look good on paper but feel wrong in your gut. When your why is strong, you can say no to what doesn't serve you, even if it's profitable. You're not swayed by hype or pressure. You're guided by something deeper. And here's the beautiful part. It's never too late to define your why. Whether you're 18 or 80, you can ask the question and start again. You can course correct. You can pivot. You can decide that from this point forward, your pursuit of wealth will be aligned with something that actually matters to you. That's the invitation. Not just to get rich, but to get clear. To ask yourself not just how to make more money, but why you want it. What would you build? Who would benefit? What would last beyond you? Because here's the truth. When you're clear on your why, the how takes care of itself. You'll find the right books, the right mentors, the right habits. You'll have energy in the morning and clarity at night. You won't just accumulate wealth, you'll create meaning. So if you remember one thing today, let it be this. Before you chase dollars, define your direction. Before you grind, take a moment to ground. And before you build wealth, ask yourself, why? That answer could be the foundation of everything that follows. When people talk about money, they almost always start with one question. How do I make more of it? This sounds logical. More money solves problems, right? More money gives you more options. More money means more success. But that's not always true. I've met people who earn six figures and still live paycheck to paycheck. I've seen business owners who bring in millions but are drowning in debt. I've talked to athletes, actors, even CEOs who had it all and lost it all because they never learned one critical truth. How much you earn means nothing if you don't know how to manage it. This is the second rule that changed my life, and it's this. Discipline beats income. We're taught to chase the next raise, the next opportunity, the next breakthrough, and there's nothing wrong with wanting more. Growth is natural. But the lie we're sold is that more income automatically leads to more wealth. It doesn't. More income just gives you more responsibility. If you haven't learned to manage what you have now, getting more won't fix it. It'll just magnify the cracks. I learned this the hard way. When I got my first big promotion, I thought, this is it. I finally had breathing room. More money meant less stress, right? Wrong. I upgraded everything. The car, the apartment, the wardrobe. My expenses rose faster than my salary. 6 months in, I was more anxious than ever. I wasn't building wealth, I was building pressure. I didn't need more income, I needed more discipline. The truth is, financial freedom doesn't come from earning more. It comes from mastering consistency. That means showing up every day for your money the way you show up for your values, your family, your mission. Discipline isn't glamorous, it's not sexy, it doesn't make headlines, but over time it builds something extraordinary. Stability. And stability is what allows you to grow. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. She never earned more than $45,000, 0 cents a year. Single mom. 2 kids. small town. But she had a system. Every month she put something away. Sometimes $50, 0 cents. Sometimes $10, 0 cents. Didn't matter. She was consistent. She tracked her spending. Lived below her means. Made intentional choices. Today she owns her home. Her kids are in college, and she has more savings than people I know who earn 5 times as much. Why? Because she understood something most people miss. Discipline is the great equalizer. You don't need to be rich to build wealth. You need to be reliable. Not with big flashy moves, but with the small, quiet habits that compound over time. And that's the point. Wealth doesn't come from sudden leaps. It comes from steady steps. That's the part no one tells you. Everyone wants the shortcut, the hack, the miracle investment. But real wealth isn't built in windfalls. It's built in rhythm. And rhythm is born from discipline. When I began treating my money the way an athlete treats their training, with intention, with accountability, with humility, everything changed. I stopped chasing highs and started building habits. I automated my savings. I tracked my spending. I learned to pause before purchasing. I started asking, does this serve the life I'm trying to build? And when the answer was no, I learned to walk away. That kind of discipline feels restrictive at first, like you're cutting back, like you're saying no to things you want. But what you're actually doing is saying yes to something bigger. Yes to future freedom. Yes to peace of mind. Yes to the ability to give, grow, and live without fear. And here's the amazing part. Once discipline becomes part of your identity, it stops feeling like sacrifice. It starts feeling like alignment. You begin to see yourself not as someone trying to get rich, but as someone who is building a legacy. And that shift from impulse to intention is the real breakthrough. Because when discipline leads, income follows. Maybe not overnight, but over time, yes. You become the kind of person who is ready for more. You don't just wish for opportunity, you prepare for it. You build habits that make you trustworthy with bigger responsibilities. And that's what creates sustainable growth. Too often, people think the answer is hustle. Work harder. Grind more. Burn the candle at both ends. But hustle without discipline just burns you out. It's discipline that keeps you grounded, that helps you say no when everyone else says yes, that helps you stay the course when distractions scream for your attention. And yes, discipline requires patience. There will be months when you want to quit, when you feel like it's not working, when you see others getting ahead and wonder, why not me? But here's the secret. If you stay consistent, the results compound. Not just financially, but emotionally. You grow in confidence. You stop second-guessing yourself. You become resilient. Discipline is how you build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of all success. So here's what I want you to take away. Don't chase income until you've mastered discipline. Don't upgrade your lifestyle until you've upgraded your habits. Don't confuse busy with productive or rich with secure. Learn to manage what you have and more will come, not as a reward, but as a reflection of who you've become. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter what you earn. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made. You can decide today to become consistent, to build systems, to say no to the temporary so you can say yes to the lasting. That's the real power. That's what builds wealth. Not a raise, not a bonus, not a lucky break, just quiet, steady, disciplined action. Every day, every dollar, Every choice. Because in the end, wealth doesn't go to the person who earns the most, it goes to the one who masters the least. We live in a world that celebrates speed, fast delivery, fast answers, fast food, fast results. We reward immediacy and treat delay as weakness. If something takes too long, we abandon it. If results don't come quickly, we switch strategies. And in that mindset, that addiction to now, we miss the quiet truth that builds lasting wealth. The ability to wait is not a punishment. It's a superpower. When I first began to understand money, I thought the goal was acceleration. I wanted everything to happen faster. Savings, returns, investments, freedom. I was in a rush. Every decision I made was measured by how quickly it could get me somewhere. I didn't want to hear about 10-year plans. I wanted 10-month miracles. And like so many people who chase speed, I ended up spinning in circles. Busy, but not better off. Active, but not advancing. Then I learned a rule that changed everything. Delay is power, not pain. So, it's one of the hardest lessons to accept because it runs against what we've been taught. We grow up believing that success should feel instant, that if it takes too long, it must mean we're doing something wrong. But that's not how anything meaningful is built. Not relationships, not character, not wealth. All of them demand time. And those who understand that, those who learn to delay gratification, are the ones who build something that lasts. I remember reading about a study where children were offered 1 marshmallow immediately, or 2 if they could wait 15 minutes. You've probably heard of it, it's become iconic. But what's fascinating isn't just the experiment, it's the follow-up. Years later, the kids who could wait were more successful in almost every area of life. Education, income, relationships, even health. Not because they were smarter, but because they had trained something more important, self-control. And in the world of money, that one trait can change everything. Here's why. Wealth rewards patience. It doesn't matter how much you earn or how smart you are. If you can't delay gratification, you will always trade your future for your present. You'll buy what you don't need. You'll chase investments that promise fast returns. You'll fall for shortcuts, schemes, or trends, all because waiting feels like losing. I had a friend who started investing when she was 21. Not a lot, just $100, 0 cents a month. Nothing flashy, but she did it every month without fail. She didn't time the market. She didn't chase the hottest stocks. She didn't even know much about investing, to be honest. But what she had was consistency and patience. By 40, she had more money saved and invested than people twice her income. Not because she was lucky, but because she understood that the magic is in the wait. Compounding, the force that turns small habits into massive gains, only works if you give it time. It's not exciting in the beginning. In fact, it feels like nothing's happening. But give it years, not weeks, and you start to see something extraordinary. The growth becomes exponential. It's like pushing a snowball down a hill. At first it's tiny, but by the time it reaches the bottom, it's unstoppable. But you have to wait. And waiting is hard when the world is telling you to move faster. We scroll past other people's wins, the house they just bought, the trip they're on, the car they're driving, and we feel behind. We think, why not me? But here's the problem. We compare their highlight reel to our process. We forget that what looks like overnight success often took years of quiet, invisible discipline. What you see as instant is usually just delayed gratification finally paying off. And this applies to more than just money. Delay builds strength in every area of life. When you learn to wait, you gain control over your impulses. You stop reacting and start choosing. You stop needing external validation and start building internal conviction. You stop chasing pleasure and start building peace. There's a kind of confidence that only comes from patience. You can walk away from things that don't serve you because you're not desperate. You can say no to things that look good now because you know something better is being built. That's what delay does. It gives you the space to grow into the person you're trying to become. I once had an opportunity that looked amazing on the surface. More money, more recognition, more reach, but something didn't feel right. The values didn't align. The culture felt off. And every part of me wanted to say yes because it looked like a leap forward. But instead, I waited. I passed. And at the time, it felt like a loss, like I was missing my shot. But a year later, I saw what that choice had saved me from. The company fell apart. The leaders I would have worked with were exposed for unethical behavior. That one moment of delay protected me from years of regret. Sometimes the delay isn't just about gain, it's about protection. So how do you build this kind of patience? You start small. You build micro delays into your daily life. Wait 24 hours before making a big purchase. Sit with a decision before acting. Create space between impulse and response. These small acts of discipline become the foundation for something much bigger. You also surround yourself with people who understand long games, the ones who aren't impressed by quick wins but by deep roots. You begin to define success not by how fast someone got there, but by how well they stayed. And most importantly, you redefine your relationship with time. You stop seeing delay as denial and start seeing it as development. You stop asking, how quickly can I get there? And start asking, how strong can I become while I wait? Because here's the truth. The goal isn't to get rich quickly. The goal is to never be broke again. And that requires a mindset that honors process over pace. In the end, delay is not a detour. It's the path. It's where you build strength, where you build strategy, where you build self-trust. That's the power. And the people who learn to wait, they don't just get more, they become more. They become ready. If you look around, you'll notice something strange. People are willing to spend hours researching the specs of a phone they'll replace in 2 years, but they'll blindly throw money into things they barely understand just because someone told them it's the next big thing. They'll follow hype instead of clarity, gamble instead of grow, react instead of reflect. And then they wonder why wealth feels unstable, why it slips through their fingers no matter how much they make. Money doesn't reward panic. It rewards understanding. One of the most important lessons I ever learned about wealth was this: don't invest in things you don't understand. And when I say invest, I don't just mean financially. I mean with your time, your energy, your focus, your attention. If you're putting something in and you don't understand what you're getting back, you're not investing. You're hoping, and hope is not a strategy. We live in a world where everyone wants the shortcut. People ask, what's the best stock to buy right now? Or which crypto is going to explode? Or what's the next passive income stream I should jump into? And when you ask them why that choice, why that platform, why that business, most people have no idea. My friend told me, I saw it on TikTok. Someone said it worked for them. That's not investing. That's outsourcing your future to someone else's opinion. I remember a moment years ago when I nearly made that mistake. A colleague told me about a can't-miss opportunity, a new tech startup that was gaining momentum. I didn't know the founders, I didn't understand the business model, but the numbers were impressive. The projections were exciting. It looked like a rocket ship. So I was tempted, but something didn't sit right. had this question lingering in my gut. Do I really know what I'm putting my money into? So I paused. I did the uncomfortable thing. I said no, and not out of fear, but out of principle. A year later, the company folded. Turns out the projections were fake. The founders disappeared. Most of the early investors lost everything. That moment taught me something priceless. When you don't understand what you're investing in, you're not in control. The same rule applies to every area of your life. Don't just invest your money in things you don't understand. Don't invest your time in relationships that confuse you. Don't invest your focus in goals that aren't clear. Don't invest your energy in roles that don't align. Because the most expensive thing you can do is give yourself away to something that doesn't grow you. And that brings me to the other side of this rule, maybe the most important part of all: invest in yourself. We say it often, but we rarely do it well. Real self-investment doesn't mean just buying courses or attending seminars. It means building an understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. It means being willing to grow even when no one is watching. It means choosing long-term self-respect over short-term validation. I once sat down with a man who built an incredibly successful business from scratch. No outside capital, no fancy education, just discipline, vision, and time. I asked him, what was your first investment? I expected him to say something about real estate or stocks. Instead, he said, books. I didn't have money to hire experts, so I became one. I invested in learning, in thinking, in making better decisions. That stuck with me. Because it wasn't about the money, it was about the mindset. He understood that no investment would outperform the one he made in his own growth. And he was right. When you understand yourself, you move differently. You stop chasing trends and start following values. You stop trying to be everything and start building on what makes you unique. That kind of clarity doesn't just improve your finances, it improves your life. When you invest in your self-awareness, you learn how to use your time better. When you invest in your mindset, you build resilience in a world full of noise. When you invest in your skills, you increase your value in any room. And when you invest in your relationships, not for status, but for substance, you build a network that helps you grow, not just look good. The irony is, people hesitate to invest in themselves because they're not sure they'll get a return. But they'll spend thousands on things they barely understand because someone promised it would work. That's backwards. You are the only investment you can truly control. And when you grow, everything around you grows too. There's a reason every great investor, every successful founder, every enduring leader talks about this. The deeper your understanding, the better your judgment. And judgment, not hype, not timing, is what creates real wealth. So ask yourself, what do I understand deeply? What have I studied, experienced, practiced, questioned? That's where your greatest financial decisions will come from. It's not about being an expert in everything. It's about being honest about where your knowledge ends and staying within the circle of competence you've earned. If you want to expand that circle, that's great. But do it intentionally. Learn before you leap. Study before you stake. Grow your understanding before you grow your risk. And here's what I've found. The more you invest in understanding of markets, of yourself, of others, the less you need to chase. You start to recognize real opportunities. You stop falling for fads. You don't get pulled into the emotional roller coaster of fear and greed. You become steady, thoughtful, prepared. That kind of person builds wealth that doesn't just survive, but scales, because it's built on substance, not speculation. So if you're serious about building something that lasts, Don't just ask, where can I put my money? Ask, what do I deeply understand? And more importantly, how well do I understand myself? Because when you know what you're doing and who you are while doing it, you don't need to chase wealth. You become the kind of person wealth is drawn to. We've all done it. Bought the shoes because someone we admire wears them. Chosen the car because it turns heads. Ordered the expensive dish, not because we were hungry, but because we wanted to signal something. Success, status, sophistication. It's so subtle, we barely notice. But underneath those decisions is a quiet fear. If I don't spend this way, I won't be seen a certain way. This is one of the most costly beliefs people carry. And not just financially, emotionally too. Because when we spend to impress, we give our power away. We let the opinions of others dictate the direction of our money. And over time, that habit leads to emptiness masked by elegance, pressure dressed up as luxury, and debt that's justified as self-expression. But here's the truth. Real wealth doesn't ask for validation. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't live on display. The people who build lasting wealth don't buy to impress. They spend to express. There's a massive difference. Impressing is about others. Expressing is about alignment. Impressing asks, what will they think of me? Expressing asks, does this reflect who I really am? When you buy to impress, your money becomes a costume. But when you spend to express, your money becomes a mirror. It reflects your values, your story, your sense of what matters. That shift, though subtle, can change everything. I remember a season in my life where I was caught in the trap. I had just landed a new opportunity, and with it came a decent income boost. I told myself, you've worked hard, you've earned it. And I had. But what followed wasn't thoughtful. It was reactive. I upgraded everything. Phone, clothes, home, even the restaurants I ate at. Not because I needed to, not even because I wanted to, but because I felt like it was expected. Like that version of success needed a certain look. And for a while it felt good. Because here's the thing. The more I spent to maintain that image, the more disconnected I felt from myself. I wasn't spending with intention. I was spending to keep up. Not just with others, but with the version of myself I thought I had to be. It took me a while to realize I didn't need more money. I needed more meaning. That's when things started to shift. I began asking different questions. Not, what should I buy next? But what do I want my money to say about me? Not how do I look successful, but what kind of life feels successful to me, even if no one sees it? And the answers surprised me. They were simpler. They were quieter. They were truer. I stopped upgrading to impress people I didn't even know. I started directing my money toward things that actually mattered to me. Travel that opened my mind, books that deepened my thinking, experiences that built my relationships. I bought fewer things, but every purchase felt more aligned. I wasn't trying to look rich. I was trying to live rich, in joy, in time, in integrity. That's the core of this idea. Spending to express isn't about frugality. It's not about denial or minimalism, unless that's your authentic path. It's about connection. Connection between what you value and how you use your resources. When those two things align, spending becomes an extension of identity, not an escape from insecurity. We're told that success looks a certain way, but if you really study people who've built lasting wealth, the kind that outlives them, their spending tends to reflect Purpose, not pressure. You'll notice something powerful. They don't care much about appearances. Not because they can't afford it, but because they've outgrown the need for external proof. I met a man once, extremely wealthy by any standard, but he drove a beat-up truck and wore the same boots he'd owned for a decade. Not because he was cheap, but because his identity wasn't tied to perception. When I asked him about it, he said something I'll never forget. Why would I spend money to become someone I'm not? It's a simple idea, but a profound one. Because a lot of people are doing just that, spending to create a version of themselves that feels acceptable, admired, or envied. And it's exhausting. You can't buy your way into belonging. You can't purchase peace of mind. You can only live into it. So how do you shift? How do you move from impressing to expressing? It starts with one question. Who am I when no one's watching? If your spending only makes sense in the presence of an audience, it's probably not authentic. But when it reflects your inner life, your values, your dreams, your priorities, it becomes sustainable. It becomes joyful. It becomes empowering. You don't need to justify what brings you joy, but you do need to know why it brings you joy. That's the difference between intentional indulgence and unconscious consumption. One affirms your identity, the other erodes it. And let's be clear, this isn't about judgment. There's nothing wrong with nice things. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself, celebrating wins, or even enjoying status, as long as it's on your terms, not society's script. The danger is when you start living someone else's definition of success and calling it your own. You can feel it when that happens, the tension, the stress, the need to maintain a facade. But the moment you align your money with your meaning, things change. You feel lighter, clearer, more rooted. You stop being controlled by image and start being led by intention. So let your money speak, but make sure it's speaking your truth. Let it say what matters to you, what you're building, what kind of life you're creating. Not what you think others expect of you. Because at the end of the day, wealth isn't about how many people are impressed by your lifestyle. It's about how deeply your life reflects what you care about. When you start spending to express, not impress, your relationship with money changes. It becomes less about proving and more about living. Less about appearance, more about authenticity. And in that shift, you find something you can't buy. Freedom.